I do believe we're going to have a DVD of that performance will be available, so they should see Sister Nicola Burton. If you would like to have a video of that performance on yesterday, even if you were there, you would want to have it to watch again, but you may know of someone who would find that to be an uplifting experience. They, for whatever reason, they're not able to have, participate, but we do encourage you to order that DVD. Promises to be a blessing, because we were certainly blessed on yesterday. And I'm thankful Dr. John Downing has stayed over to worship with us. He and his wife were here on yesterday, and we're thankful that they are here, and we're just pleased for all of the people of God. We had a big crowd on yesterday, and it was just a great blessing. And so we want the Advent season to be experience after experience of what is lifting us, because we got a lot pressing us down. There's a lot pressing us down, and so we want to make sure we get a lift from Advent. And so spread the peace, spread the joy, spread the love of the season. Invite your family and friends to worship with you, and I encourage you to take advantage of all the opportunities. There's one thing about living in Washington, D.C., there's no lack of opportunities for concerts and performances, and I just encourage you to take advantage of every opportunity that you have to worship and to grow during this Advent season. Let's ask God's blessing on the ministry of the word. Speak, Lord, your servant is listening. Your people need a word, but we require your anointing to hear what you're speaking to us. We require your anointing to speak, to proclaim your truth. We require your anointing to have hearts that can receive the message that you're conveying to us. So speak, Holy Spirit. Smear us with your presence and your power, and give us your perspective so that we will become doers of your word and not hearers only. Is our prayer in Jesus' name. Amen. Amen. Our message for this second Sunday in Advent is the family of God. And the lesson has been read from the second chapter of Luke's Gospel. And there's one verse in particular that I want to highlight as the focus for our message today. And that is verse 7. And she brought forth her firstborn son and wrapped him in swaddling clothes and laid him in a manger, because there was no room for them in the inn. So the question I want to offer to you this morning for your consideration is this: what kind of family was the Son of God born into? What kind of family was the Son of God born into? Well, if you just read those first verses of Luke's second chapter, there are 3 points that kind of emerge to answer that question. We know that the baby Jesus, his mother and his father, were global citizens of an evil and oppressive empire. The story begins when Caesar issues an order for all the world to be taxed, and everybody has to register. And there's a registration process that seems to be very difficult and very burdensome, especially for a woman who is about to give birth. You would think she might get an exemption. But then, as now, exemption is hard to come by. And so they were global citizens. So you get a sense of the world, what's happening in the world. And so, well, let's be careful, Christians, and when we bury our head in the sand and act like what's happening in the world doesn't affect us. Because it does. We are citizens of a planet. And so you get this global thing. The order comes from Rome, and Cyrenius is the governor, and so it just is a mention of what's happening in the world. But they are citizens of the empire, and they are subjected to the rules, even the oppressive schemes, economic oppression. Oppression usually has an economic purpose. Okay, you don't just oppress people because you don't like them. You oppress them because you're trying to take their money, or you're trying to rob them of their wealth, or you're trying to make the rich richer and the poor poorer, whatever. But they're global citizens. Another factor that those first verses give us of what kind of family was the Son of God born into, the family of global citizens, but it's also a family with a royal pedigree, rooted in faith and fidelity and legacy. Well, where do you get all of that? Well, the fact that determined where they went to be taxed, where they went to register, was their lineage, their genealogy. Okay? And I know that in our present day, if you are so inclined, you can easily get information about your ancestry from Ancestry.com. They send you a little kit and you swab your cheek and they'll do DNA. They'll at least give you some kind of report of what are the various, shall we say, the origins of your ancestors. Because not too many of us have ancestry from one place. But we're from all over the place. That's why you're a global citizen. You're a global citizen, whether you like it or not, because your DNA is not just inclusive of people from your birthplace, but there's all kinds of streams in your DNA. Well, they didn't have DNA and that kind. Well, they had DNA, but they didn't know what it was then. But they did have pedigree, did have ancestry, did have tradition, did have legacy. They knew who they were. And so the good thing about the ancestry is that it's good for people to be in a position and to have the resources now where we can research our ancestry. But even though they didn't have the same tools, they had more precise knowledge because they carefully preserved the genealogies. We get a genealogy in Luke, we get a genealogy in Matthew. And so who cares about who begat who begat who? It's their way of tracing their ancestry back, and that was important. And so this is a family that when Jesus is born into a family where they could tell him who his ancestors were and what their stories were. And so when you look at the genealogy of Jesus, there's a lot of information that each one of those names represents. A lot of history, a lot of struggle. And so one good thing about knowing your pedigree, knowing your ancestors, what were their gifts? What were their struggles? What were their failures? There's some of our ancestors, if I tell the truth, it's some of my ancestors I really don't want to know too much about them. I don't. I'm just telling the truth. But it's good to know, what did they overcome? What were their special challenges? What were their special victories? Just to know their story. And so Jesus was born into a family that knew where they came from. And that's why they went to Bethlehem. There he then becomes a son of David. He was clear, a royal pedigree. Because David was royalty. So he descended from royalty, but also from faith and fidelity and legacy. And then the third thing, what kind of family was the Son of God born into? Global citizens, royal pedigree. He was born into a family of committed caregivers. Now here's what I mean. In that 7th verse of Luke chapter 2, the key word for the care Jesus received is swaddling. The key word is swaddling. Now, if you have a modern version, it'll say that he was wrapped in cloths. But if you have King James or one of those older translations, it speaks about swaddling clothes. Now, what is swaddle? That's a term we don't use too much. What is to swaddle? To swaddle simply means, I wish I had a doll I could show you, to wrap the newborn tightly enough to stop the involuntary motion of their arms and legs. Now, I know there's some pediatricians in the audience, so I'm going to be too technical about this. But there's some kind of thing that happens to newborns where it's some kind of a reflex that they have, and they really can't control their arms and legs when they're born. But if you wrap them, it makes them feel secure and safe. Because if you just leave them, they can't control, they can't walk, they can't do much with their arms, and it's like a reflex. It's like you would think if you threw them in water, they would swim. Okay, it has some name, but I'm not going to get into the name because I don't want to embarrass myself with my ignorance. But I have had a baby, and I know, and if you ever go to a nursery in the hospital, you know, where they have the newborns, all of them are wrapped. They're all wrapped. And so that's swaddling. That's swaddling. And the thing about swaddling is it is only appropriate for newborn babies. If you keep swaddling children as they grow up, they may never reach adulthood. See, it's just something you do when they're first born. And it makes them feel secure, and it makes them feel warm, and it makes them feel like they're safe. It makes them feel a sense of control. Swaddlers administer then age-appropriate care. And that age-appropriate care, I would suggest to you, is a characteristic of the family of God. I'm just talking about the family that Jesus was born into. There's not a whole lot of information there. And, well, I'm just trying to give you some insight into this verse. I know if you've ever heard this Christmas story, you know about the swaddling clothes. But I'm trying to tell you it's indicative of the nature of his family, that somebody cared enough to give him an age-appropriate intervention, ingenuity, and improvisation. What's the age-appropriate intervention? Mary swaddled the baby to make him feel safe and warm in a hostile environment. Okay? The hostility was global. He was descendant. Royal pedigree got him in trouble from the beginning. If you go to Matthew, and Matthew talks about the wise men. What did the wise men come saying? They said, where's the king of the Jews? Okay, so the wise men came from the east looking for the royalty. The royalty got him in trouble because Herod was like, oh, yeah, well, when you find him, let me know so that I can go worship him. And then he issued an order for all the babies to be killed. So the royal pedigree was for him not privileged. It put him in jeopardy. But the intervention of the swaddling, it represents his mother making him feel safe and warm in a hostile environment. And as the story goes, Joseph also participated in the intervention. Took him to Egypt. They had to leave the country to be protected, to shield the baby from harm. Joseph took them to Egypt when Herod sent his soldiers to come and kill him. So you have swaddling. Swaddling just represents an age-appropriate intervention to make the baby feel safe. Swaddling also involves ingenuity. Now, Mary, I'm guessing here, but I think I'm right. Mary was prepared with everything the baby needed to survive. Now, keep this in mind now. She's traveling. She's a long way from home. But one thing that we don't know a lot about her, we know that she's young. We know that she was bewildered by this assignment that she had to have this baby. But we also know that she went to visit her cousin. Elizabeth was her cousin, right? And Elizabeth was a much older. Elizabeth was too old to have a baby, and she had one. But you can only imagine, I'm just guessing, maybe I'm wrong, that one reason why she went to Elizabeth was get some information, because Elizabeth was ahead of her, get some information about what do I do when I have this baby. But Mary was prepared, and why I call that ingenuity is, did you know what to bring on the trip? I mean, how many parents, we forgot the diapers, we forgot the formula, we forgot the this, we forgot the, but she didn't forget. She was prepared. And the ingenuity relates to the point I want to make about improvisation. I like that word, improvisation. Improvisation has a lot of cultural sort of meaning. But there were no rooms available in Bethlehem when they got there. And so Mary laid the baby in a manger. Now we know about the manger. I was telling the children about the manger. Manger is a trough where the hay and the food for the animals is in the manger. It's not supposed to be a bed. It's not supposed to be a crib. But she improvised. She said, well, we don't have any other place, so let me put the baby here. Okay, so she wrapped the baby, swallowed the baby, and then put the baby in the manger. It's like, if you don't have when my children were born, we had a cradle to put them in. Actually, we borrowed it. We don't still have it. I guess we gave it back to whoever lent it to us. But you can use a dresser drawer. I mean, that's just an example of improvisation. A dresser drawer. Now, you don't stick the baby in the dresser. Take the drawer out the dresser. Don't just open the drawer and stick the baby in there. But you can improvise. How many parents had to improvise? If you don't have the ingenuity to make sure that you have everything, you take what you have and make it work. That's the kind of family that I see in this passage. Now, here's the part where you're probably going to get mad at me. I don't read this story as an account of poverty and homelessness. And here's the reason why. There was no room in the inn because the inn was booked. And we sometimes make, well, they were poor, so they got turned away. No, everybody was being taxed. And it's like, if you're trying to make a reservation to go somewhere and there's a convention, how many times are we going, and you don't make up your mind till the week before that you want to go, and all the rooms are booked. It's not that you were poor, but there was no room. It says there was no room in the inn. And so they went to Bethlehem to pay their taxes, which says to me, see, tax is something like tithing. Tithe is 10% of your sources of income, okay? So if your income is zero, your tithe is zero. If your income is $100, your tithe is $10. Well, taxes work the same way. If your income is zero, then you don't pay taxes. So they wouldn't have been there if they didn't have any money. So I'm just saying that we can make them poor and homeless and say this is the poor homeless people, but if they didn't have any money, they wouldn't be taxed. So it seemed like to me they had what they needed to take care of their newborn baby under very difficult circumstances. They had what they needed. I'm not trying to make them rich. I'm just saying, let's not read into this story what's not there, okay? They had what what they needed to take care of their baby under difficult circumstances. Now, under normal circumstances, every mother has mercy on her newborn baby. Every mother is willing to provide everything the baby needs because the baby cannot provide for itself. You don't bring a baby home and say, okay, the bathroom's down the hall, and you can help yourself to what's in the refrigerator, and if you get too warm, you can turn down the thermostat. You have to do everything for the baby. And that, but your assumption, under normal circumstances, your assumption is, okay, I have to anticipate what this baby needs and provide it because they can't tell me. And so the only thing they can do is cry. So if they're too cold or they're too wet or they're too hungry, all they can do is cry. You have to figure out what they need. But you don't, under normal circumstances, you don't resent providing that. That's part of loving them and caring for them and welcoming them to your home. When you welcome them into your family, into your home, you provide everything they need. Now, it'll take them a couple years before they figure out where the bathroom is. But you don't punish them. And that's one of the problems, I guess. Maybe a reason why sometimes children are subjected to abuse and neglect is that the parents don't have a real understanding of how absolutely needy they are. And so, but there are different stages. When they come here, they can't do anything, but they quickly begin to learn and to grow. If you take care of them, and if you keep them safe, they will grow. And there's some things they will actually figure out. In fact, eventually you're going to have to fight with them over the thermostat because they too hot and you too cold. And you the one pay the bill, so you the one start set. No, let me get off. I don't know how to get off. I don't want to get off. I don't get off. But I'm trying to say is this family made this baby welcome. And that's the normal thing for families to do, making them welcome. You can't ask the baby, what can I do for you? You have to figure that out. You have to anticipate it and use all the ingenuity, all the improvisation that you can, all of the intervention. You want to do everything possible to make them safe and secure and make them know that you love them. You don't just love them by saying, I love you, reading them stories. You should do that. But you got to feed them. And you got to buy Pampers. And you don't just buy them. You got to put them on, and then you got to wipe their butt when you take the Pampers. It's stuff you got to do. And all of that is about showing them love and making them welcome. But it's showing mercy. Without mercy and love and provision, the baby can't survive. And so the family is God's plan to provide what is needed for children in order for them to survive and thrive. But Mary took it a step further. When Mary swaddled her baby, she was swaddling God. And after Jesus became a man, he put the care he received from her into an interesting perspective. Now I want to go to the end of the Gospel of Matthew. Matthew 25. And Jesus said these words, I was hungry, and you gave me something to eat. Just suspend your judgment for a moment, and let me just read you that scripture. Think about it. Is this the testimony of a newborn? I was hungry, and some babies are hungrier than others, and some parents are more compliant with what the pediatricians tell them to do. Oh, don't give them solid food for so many months, and others of them, the first day they get home, they're getting some cereal in the formula. So, but, some babies are hungry all the time. Some babies are not. You got to figure, that's one of the things you have to figure out. Is your baby hungry? But I was hungry, and you gave me something to eat. This is what Jesus said. I was thirsty, and you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger in a manger, and you invited me in. I needed clothes. Or as Giselle said, I was naked. And you clothed me. I was sick, and you looked after me. I was in prison, and you came to visit me. Then the righteous will answer him, Lord, when did we see you hungry and feed you, or thirsty and give you something to drink? When did we see you a stranger and invite you in, or needing clothes and clothe you? When did we see you sick or in prison and go to visit you? The king will reply, truly I tell you, whatever you did for one of the least of these brothers and sisters of mine, you did for me. That's what I'm saying. It's a perspective. It's just a point of view where Jesus, from his own mouth, is giving the testimony that we could associate with a newborn. I was hungry. I was thirsty. You did it for me. Jesus said, when you do it for the least of these, you did it to me. And so that's how the family of God works. When you show mercy and compassion and give care to those who are least able to return it, those who are least able to do these things for themselves, then you will be rewarded as if you had swaddled God. Your family will be blessed. Your nation will be blessed. Because if you read that Matthew chapter 25 carefully, that word, that parable speaks of nations and not of individuals. And the suggestion is that at the end of time, when the nations are divided into the sheep and the goats, the sheep will be the nations that had a positive public policy regarding the least of these, children and adults. And the goats, we didn't know it was you, Lord. We didn't feed them. We didn't pay any attention to them because we didn't know it was you. Depart from me. But it's a word to nations. So your nation will be blessed if there are people who care about the least of these. Your family will be blessed if there are people in your family who care about the least of these. But Jesus is saying when you did it to them, you did it to me. It doesn't say that they are God. It said when you did it to them, you did it to me. And so that's a way in which we swaddle God. When we show love and compassion to those who can't return it, we swaddle God. Have you ever listened to the story behind the Christmas carol, Good King Wenceslas? I think it was performed yesterday. The young lady, during the offertory, one of the carols, Good King Wenceslas. That's one of those long carols with a whole lot of verses. There's a whole lot of words. But it's a simple story. Good King Wenceslas looked out on the Feast of Stephen. Feast of Stephen is actually Boxing Day. And I know most of us in the United States don't know what Boxing Day is. But if y'all come from the other Caribbean, y'all know Boxing Day is the day after Christmas. And the Feast of Stephen falls on the day after Christmas. So even though we count it as a Christmas carol, the Feast of Stephen is the day after Christmas. So that's how it gets in the book as a Christmas carol. But it's a long story. The snow lay round about deep and crisp and even. Brightly shone the moon that night, though the frost was cruel, when a poor man came in sight, gathering winter fuel. It's a story about a king who looked out on a snowy evening and saw a poor man trying to scrounge around for some wood to keep himself warm. And so the way the story goes, there's a lot of verses, but the way the story goes, what the king does is to get his servant, his page, and say, look, we're going to get food and fuel and wine. We're going to get everything together for this poor man that I spotted out there, and we're going to take it to him. And so the rest of the carol talks about going out in the cold wind, and it's dark, and the servant says, I can go no longer, sir. The night is darker now. The wind blows stronger. Fails my heart. I know not how I can go no longer. And then the king says, so they're out, the two men, the king and the servant, are trying to get to the poor man out in the snow in the night. And he says, mark my footsteps, my good page. Tread now in them boldly. You will find the winter's rage freeze your blood less coldly. And in his master's steps he trod, where the snow lay dented. That's just walking in the footsteps. It's one, you walk in the snow. There's footsteps in the snow. But the page followed in the footsteps of the king. And whenever he stepped where the king had stepped, heat was in the very sod which the saint had printed. So when he stepped in the footsteps of the king, there was warmth in that footstep. And then the last two lines of the carols is the point I want to make. Therefore, Christian men, be sure, while God's gifts possessing, you who now will bless the poor shall yourselves find blessing. So that's the whole message of the carol, is that the king found blessing because he was willing to bless the poor. That he was willing not just to say, God bless you, but to go to take something to him to get, you got your warm house, and you're going to step out of your warm house to be a blessing to someone who's scrounging around trying to make it. So that's a song. As I said, there's a lot of words to get through, but I don't know how carefully we get the point of it, that when God is gifting you, one reason, not the only reason, but one reason why God gives you the gifts you have is so that you can be a blessing to somebody else. There's somebody else who needs to benefit from what you have. If you're not willing to listen, if you're not willing to look, if you're not willing to care, if you're not willing to be compassionate, then just keep your old gift. But God gave you the gift to share it. And I'm not just talking about money and possessions. It's just compassion itself is a gift. Because some of us are more compassionate than others. But if we team up with our various gifts, we can become a compassionate family. We can become a compassionate church, a compassionate congregation, a compassionate community. Dare I say it, we can become a compassionate nation. So instead of building walls and pulling guns and shooting the people when we don't like their color or their language or their nationality, running them over and acting like, well, I didn't know. Instead of hating people for their difference, we take care of people. We welcome people. We make them feel safe and secure to the best of our ability, instead of making ourselves come across as hostile and hateful. So there's hate in the Christmas story, but ain't no hate around that manger. Okay? And so that family of God becomes a haven for the Son of God. And that swallowing, that mother who said, okay, I'm not going to use the empire as an excuse. I'm not going to use the little irregularities in our ancestry as an excuse. But I'm going to take care of my baby. I'm going to love my family. And I'm going to trust God to give me the ingenuity and that I need to improvise. And even if I got to invent something that doesn't exist, I'm going to make sure that I'm committed to the well-being of my family. I'm going to minister compassionate care. And when we do that, we swaddle God. If you're a follower of Jesus Christ, if you are born again by your confession of faith in Jesus Christ, your family is the family of God. But by faith, each one of us can belong to a global family, a royal family. Each one of us can belong to a family that is committed to taking care of our own. 1 Peter chapter 2 says, you are a chosen generation, a royal priesthood. You are a holy nation, people who belong to God. King James said the peculiar people. But the peculiar people are the people who belong. How are they going to know you belong to God? Because the way you operate in your family is like the family of God operates. And I want you to pay attention to how the family of God operates. Maybe you never heard this text preached this way, but I'm giving you, shall we say, a maternal or a womanist perspective. Okay? Where it's from, what did Mary do? We know what Jesus did. He was just a baby. He just got born. Right? But what did Mary do? Mary said, I'm going to take care of this baby. I'm going to love this baby. I can't answer all the questions around this baby, but this is my opportunity to do what I need to do. And that is to be committed to the care, because God knew who to pick for the mother. Now, we wouldn't have picked her. Too young, not married, whatever, her ancestry or whatever. But God knew who to pick to provide, to create the family for the Son of God. And can I just say that Jesus didn't get completely unswaddled until he rose from the dead. Remember he laid remember about they say about the grave clothes? That the grave clothes were laid to the side? Because he got swaddled again when he died. That's what, swaddled. But just like the manger was borrowed, so was the tomb. Borrowed. He only needed for a few days. He didn't stay in that manger. He didn't spend the rest of his life in that manger. The manger was just temporary. So was the tomb. But guess who was there when he got unswaddled? His mother. Who was at the cross? His mother. Who was at the wedding when he turned the water into wine? His mother. Who was at the Pentecost when he went up to heaven and sent the Holy Ghost? His mother. So I'm just giving you from his mother's perspective. She swaddled God. And it became a blessing to the world because she swaddled God. You were chosen to tell about the excellent qualities of God who called you out of darkness into his marvelous light. Once you were not God's people, but now you are. Once you were not shown mercy, but now you have been shown mercy. So what kind of family shall we say the Son of God was born into? He was born into a family that swaddled him with care and compassion. A family that made him feel welcome into a hostile, hateful world. It made a space for him to thrive and to grow. The Bible says he grew in wisdom and stature and in favor with people and with God. Her swaddling took away the excuses. She couldn't entirely shelter him from the hostilities of the world, but she did the best she could. Give him an opportunity to succeed. It's a family who gave him global awareness and a legacy of faith. A family where caring compassion calls us. This family makes room for us. And this family welcomes us to belong. Has room for us. And there is room for the gifts and the blessing that each of us brings. There's room for you. There's room at the table. There is room in the inn. It's not booked yet. But there's room in the family of God for you. And room not just for you to be cared for, but for you to be transformed into a caregiver. Because it's a back and forth, as life has its rhythms. We all come in needing care, but as life goes on, it will come your turn to be the caregiver. It'll come your turn to be the cared for. These turns, but God shepherds us through these transitions. That's why it's a great blessing to be a part of the family of God. And so, as we close this message, I have in mind as an invitational hymn, "Away in a Manger." It's it's not one of those complicated, good King Wenceslas. It's "Away in a Manger," real simple melody. It's really a lullaby, I guess. "Away in a Manger," and I thought maybe we would sing that together. But as we're singing and as we're bringing this to a close, my invitation to discipleship is an invitation to acknowledge, you know what? I want to be a part of that kind of family. I want to be a part of the family of God. I want to be a part of the family that has the wisdom and the insight to take the opportunity to administer care in a way that it rebounds in blessing and love and compassion and caring, so that we care and we are cared for. We show compassion and we feel compassion, because God gets the glory when we learn how to bond together in that way. If you're able, stand with me. And if you need the words, I think it's page 155 in the Worship the Lord hymnal. And as we're singing, we're just singing, it's just got 3 verses. We'll sing the 3 verses. But if you'd like to come for prayer, if you say, you know, I want to be a part of this, I want to be a part of the 3rd Street family, I want to be a part of the family of God and give my heart to the Lord, I want to find room at the table that God has set for me. Today is your day. This is your invitation. And as we sing, please feel free, as the Spirit leads you and guides you, to come forward, and we will pray with you. Away in a Manger. Away in a manger, no crib for a bed, the little Lord Jesus laid down his sweet head. The stars in the sky looked down where he lay. Little Lord Jesus asleep on the hay. The cattle are lowing, the baby awakes, but little Lord Jesus, no crying he makes. I love thee, Lord Jesus, look down from the sky and stay by my cradle till morning is nigh. Be near, Lord Jesus, I ask thee to stay close by me forever, and love thee I pray. Bless all the dear children in thy tender care.